Hello everybody, welcome back to Mark and Gary on 3. Today is not a next step theme video. Well, I guess it kind of is. Lost and Found was the spin-off show of The Next Step, and it was set before season 4 of The Next Step but after season 3. So in that gap in between, the Lost and Found is set. Both seasons, I'm pretty sure. It was cancelled after only 2 seasons, and then it's basically a show focused around music rather than about dance. So it follows a group of musicians, same style as The Next Step follows a group of dancers, they follow musicians. Funny enough, the music room that they use in Lost and Found is Studio 1 that they use in The Next Step season 5 because it was cancelled by then. Go check out Lost and Found. I'll give you another tip. I hate watching The Next Step season 4. I just find it cringy and it winds me up. So I highly suggest that if you feel the same as me, you watch season 3 of The Next Step, then you watch season 1 and 2 of Lost and Found, then you skip straight to season 5 of The Next Step. That is what I recommend doing. So in today's video, I'm going to be proposing to you, what if Lost and Found has a season 3? What would happen in it? Who would be in it? And what would I do if I was writing it? So as a little catch up, season 2 of Lost and Found ended with Theo realising that he liked Maggie. But Maggie liked Luke, and she realised this episode as well that Luke actually liked Leia, so she was obviously hung up about that herself. Theo didn't want to beat around the bush though and be like all hesitant around Maggie because that's what John had done, and also Luke, like they hadn't told Michelle and Leia straight out. He wanted to tell Maggie straight away. Oh, that's another thing as well. Lost and Found features some characters from The Next Step, so Michelle, Riley, James and Giselle are all in it. Theo sees that Maggie's hung up about Luke and he decides that's probably not the best time to tell her that he likes her, so he doesn't do it and he avoids telling her. As well as this, Luke and Leia kiss. John also has an emotional breakdown in front of Michelle and his dad and his grandma, all about his mom, and just not feeling like he's able to love anyone anymore, and Michelle tells him that she loves him.
I love you!
But still, we never find out whether they actually get together, which infuriates me because I ship John and Michelle so much. So in season 3 of Lost and Found, I thought it would be cool if there'd be quite a while between season 2 and season 3, and I figured this would be the best thing to do because the characters would look significantly older as well. In a similar way to The Next Step, they have to re-audition for their place at Lost and Found. Literally everybody, not just the newcomers, but the veterans too. There's also a few spots available on the programme because the boys band has left Lost and Found. They're off touring and being a good band, but it's not as smooth sailing as that. They'll occasionally come back to Lost and Found and just have occasional episodes with the characters hanging out and getting advice. But Maggie's going to be over Luke by this point, and it'll be a lot easier because the boys band isn't there every day, so she doesn't have to keep like seeing him around. Maggie would also be determined to make a name for herself this year, so she'd probably want to take more opportunities and maybe even leave the band just so she can get her name out there in the music industry. I figured that she'd be able to find the girl band a great opportunity, and that kind of sets them on the same road that the boys band has gotten. In terms of Theo liking Maggie, I would also like it if Theo still does like Maggie and he finds himself watching her singing videos that she's uploaded to the internet, and every time that the boys band go back and visit Lost and Found, he finds himself wanting to talk to Maggie and wanting to see her and update her about everything. I figured that Theo could ask everybody like, what do you think of me? Because he wants to know what Maggie probably thinks about him, and everyone says things like, oh, you're really goofy, you're really silly, you're really light-hearted. Nothing about him being mature or serious or attractive or anything like that, and that can really play on his mind, and he figures that Maggie's not going to take him seriously if no one else takes him seriously. I'd really like it if Rachel had her love life explored this season, and I had a really good idea that she could actually be gay, because Lost and Found goes into kind of deeper topics and is more mature than The Next Step. I feel like they could really be a bit more outright about this and really explore it further than they probably have the ability to do on The Next Step. I know that we have Clara and Jude who are, well, everyone's saying, oh, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but I feel like it's pretty obvious that they are going to, from their white walls and everything that's happened with them, that they are going to be in a relationship, but it's kind of subtle at the moment. I don't know what it's going to be in season 7B. I thought it would have been cool if Leia could have been gay, because in real life, Kira Graves, who plays Leia, is gay, but obviously Leia in the show is very much into Luke. They are a good couple, and I wouldn't want to change that. I thought maybe she could write a love song and it's clearly about a girl, and she doesn't say anything like, oh, I don't want to tell people. She's pretty much just like, yeah, it's about a girl, and everyone can be like, oh. But I thought because Ava is a very conservative girl and she's been raised with very conservative parents who have pretty much shadowed her and covered her in cotton wool from the rest of the world, they could have kind of instilled in Ava's mind that being gay is wrong and stuff. So Ava could maybe make a one-off comment like, oh, that's not right or something, and she doesn't mean any offence by it, that's just been how she's brought up, and Rachel can be very offended by that, and everyone else can turn on Ava and think that Ava's not a nice person anymore, and Ava can really have a moral dilemma as whether her parents have raised her correctly or not, because now she's got to readdress everything that she's been taught and try to figure out what she thinks about situations like this. Luke and Leia would be a couple in season 3 of Lost and Found, because I think it's taken them so long to get together that to break them up in season 3 would just be a complete time waster. So they would be together, but Leia can get quite self-conscious and worried about all the attention that Luke is getting by being this like up-and-coming band that's going on gigs all the time and on tour. They're getting a lot of attention from girls, and there could be a few photos emerge of Luke and some girls just, they're not doing anything that's cheating or anything, but Leia can get quite uncomfortable with it and a bit worried about how solid her relationship is with Luke. We haven't really seen a soft side to Leia much, or her be very vulnerable, especially when it comes to being in a relationship, so this would be really nice for us to explore with Leia. Because Luke is such a main character of Lost and Found, and a lot of people like his character and he has a lot of screen time, I figured that would be the perfect opportunity to do a deeper plot with him. So I figured that Luke could really start to have a mental decline this season, because he's not used to this fame and it's not everything he thought it would be. Obviously, ever since season 1 and we first saw Luke, he wanted to be this famous band, he wanted to be a rock star, but now he's not comfortable with everything that's happening to him. I figured that he could maybe have a conversation leaked online, or the pictures of him with girls at a party, and then Leia can get on his case about it, and he doesn't like how everything is in the spotlight that he does. He doesn't like being followed around by paparazzi. He doesn't like how many people now follow him on social media. He just wants to be the old Luke and having a private life and just enjoying music. It could even go to the extreme of Luke threatening to break up with Leia, or threatening to break up the band, threatening to leave the band, really reclusing himself and not joining in with any of the interviews that they have to do, or not feeling well enough to go on to do a show one night. Another suggestion would be if maybe Leia goes on Annabelle's vlog, which is now getting really, really popular online, and she might say something about Luke, like where he's staying, and then loads of girls could flock to his hotel room and he hates it, and that would just really get into his head, and it would be really hard for us as viewers to see Luke in that state. So speaking of Annabelle, her vlog would get really, really popular this season, and on the flip side to how Luke is handling all this new popularity and fame, Annabelle's handling it really well and she loves it. She loves all the attention she's getting. I thought though that maybe she starts to blur the lines between what's meant to go online and what's meant to stay private. So in terms of a plot for Annabelle, I figured that she could post something online that wasn't meant to go up. So for example, Leia saying which hotel Luke's in, she can maybe ask her to edit that out, and she's like, yeah, that's fine, but she can't be bothered to, because she's like, oh, that'll get me some like extra views if I put in the title, this is where Luke from the band is staying. So she refuses to edit that out, and it goes up, and that starts to, her friends start to dislike her then, because she's not treating them with respect. John and Michelle would also be together in season 3 because I love them and I need them to be together. And I just wouldn't like any drama for them. I feel like they've had so much in season 1 and 2 that they just need to have a smooth sailing season. So in terms of a storyline for them, I'd like to see Michelle encouraging John to be more confident and stuff, especially now that he's on tour with his band. And I'd also like to see her bring him out of his shell when it comes to talking about his mom, because he only really did that towards the very end of season 2 because of how hurt he still was. So maybe if Michelle encourages him to maybe write a song about his mom and sing it on his tour, or put it into an album for the band to release, or just even maybe there's a scene of them visiting his mum's grave or something, just something that's like Michelle's really helping him to overcome his anxiety surrounding his mom and deal with his emotions more. I feel like that would be a really nice thing to see, and it'd probably be quite emotional to watch. James wouldn't really have much of a storyline this season, because I feel like because James is from Next Step, he shouldn't be the main focus of Lost and Found as well. So while James would still have a few lines like he does anyway, he wouldn't have a big plot surrounding him. But I did figure it'd be cool if maybe when the band are taking photos for their tour, or they're doing an interview or something, the news reporter cuts him out because they don't see him as important because he's just the drummer. He doesn't sing or anything like Luke, Theo and John all do. So that could really affect him a little bit, and he questions how essential he is to the band and whether he should be doing it. I also love Dr. James, who was in season 1 and 2 of Lost and Found when he helped everyone with their issues. So I'd love to see James do that again, maybe with Luke this time, and help him with his mental health. James could even do a rap in this season on one of the albums or a song that the band does, and he could get some help from Jude with this and get some hints and tips, because we saw him rap in season 4 of The Next Step. And you know, I have conflicting opinions on whether that should have been in there, but we know James can rap, so I'd like to see James rap maybe in season 3 with Jude. Speaking of Jude, I feel like it'd be really good if Jude stays exactly the same. He's really happy-go-lucky, he's outgoing, he enjoys talking to everyone and rapping every second he can get, so he'd be delighted to help James with doing a Rap for the Boys album. He'd love that for himself, to get that bit of exposure. But I figured if he wanted an actual plot for him, he could start to like Ava, because their relationship is kind of like, it was touched on that they might like each other, but I like them and I think they'd be cute as a couple. So Jude could maybe write a rap all about Ava, but then he loses it in the same way that Ava loses her diary in season 2, I think. I figured that Jude could lose his rap that he writes about Ava, and Ava sees it, or she picks it up with her books and something. And then they realise they like each other and they can maybe get together. Speaking of Ava, she would be pretty secure in herself this season because she's overcome all of her like self-doubt and stuff, and she knows who she is as a person now. I'd love to see her performing really confidently in front of her parents, or just doing some, or getting an opportunity that just really like blows her up in terms of her popularity as a musician. I'd also love to see her maybe lead a workshop for the new members of Lost and Found, because since the boys left, there's going to be at least 4 new spaces on the Lost and Found program, so these new musicians can come up and Ava can lead something with them, because that really showed that her confidence has grown, especially from when she had to try and mentor Mary, but Mary ended up mentoring her because she was more confident than Ava, even though she just joined. So I'd like to see this come full circle for Ava and see her really grow into a mature and confident musician. Speaking of Mary, I had a good idea for quite a deep plot for her. I figured that she would be joined by Jackie this season, who is her younger sister, because she says that she's too young to audition when Mary initially does. I figured Jackie could get a really good opportunity, and Mary's initially quite jealous of that because she hasn't had a big opportunity yet, but Jackie has. So I figured she could sabotage it and go instead of Jackie to this thing and be like, oh yeah, I am Jackie, because all they know of Jackie is her voice and her name, and they have quite similar voices. So Mary would go and be like, yeah, I'm Jackie. Everybody else there would be like white, blonde, skinny girls, and they could immediately turn around to Mary and say, oh no, sorry, we didn't know you were going to be you. So she's confused and she's very naive, like she doesn't realise what the issue is until they say to her, you're not the right image for what we want. And she looks at everyone and she realises that it's something to do with the colour of her skin. And I feel like this would be a very important topic to put in a kids show, because it is very much still an issue in society. So just highlighting it as still something that's prevalent would be very important, even if it's something that's not as outright as just someone saying, I don't like you because of the colour of your skin. It would be employment discrimination. Like, they don't want people that don't look like the way that they want them to, despite how good their voice is or how talented they are. So Mary could leave and tell Jackie everything that happened, but Jackie won't believe her because Mary's kept her quite, like in a bubble. She's protected her because she's her younger sister. So Jackie won't believe it. She'll be like, well, that's not true. That wouldn't happen nowadays. But it would be true. Mary would ultimately decide maybe she should start her own record label, because she knows that she would never discriminate someone just because of what they look like. She'd want them based on their talent, and she knows that if this has happened to her, it's probably happened to a lot more people. So she decides that that is what she would like to do for her music career. So she gets some tips from Mr. T and Parker, and they tell her how she could maybe start her own business, and she starts her own record label by the end of season 3, and her first client is going to be Jackie, and and she helps her to produce a really, really good album. I think she might also take on Ava, and that could be how she gets her big break too. Mary could find a really good opportunity and be like, well, this isn't for Jackie, but I think this would be really cool for Ava. So Ava signs on to Mary's record label, and yeah, Mary's got her first 2 clients, and it's a really successful record label. She could even maybe expose the company that she went to. Yeah, I feel like it would be a really interesting topic to raise. Isaac this season would have an absolutely awful time. I feel like it was touched on that he could have a downfall in season 1 and 2 because of his brother's actions, but overall Isaac was very happy, I feel, in Lost and Found. This season it's gonna get really rough and rocky for him. I figured that his mom might get hurt by Tully's gang somehow, so maybe Tully goes against his gang, and because of what he does, they do something to his mom, or they rob from his mom, they rob his house. Just something that would really have drastic effects and make them all realise that Tully is not a good person and they need to get away from him. Isaac just wouldn't feel safe anywhere. Like, he doesn't feel safe at home. He doesn't feel safe at Lost and Found either, because he'd know that he'd eventually have to go home. And I'd like it if Clara was the one to help him. She provides a shoulder for him to cry on. She gives him comfort. She suggests some things that could help him out with his situation. And this, like with Ava, how Ava becomes a full circle in her development, this would also do the same for Clara, because Clara had such a bad time in season 2 and season 1, I guess, as well. It would just be really nice to see her helping Isaac for a change, because everyone always helped her before. I figured though that by the end Tully could do something that jeopardizes his future, so he gets sent to jail or something like that, but Isaac would feel safe because of this, and he'd be a lot happier knowing that Tully was out of his life. In a way, he's out of the picture. He's not going to hurt him, he's not going to bring his friends around to their house, he's not going to hurt their mom. He just feels very safe. So speaking of Clara, I feel like she would have a very positive season. She'd start the season by saying that she knows that she was anxious, she knows that she needed to deal with it, she knows that she still has anxiety, but she has these new ways of dealing with it, and she could really go around helping people and giving them advice and not realising that she's giving advice, but by the end she'd realise that she is much better in herself and she can help people. I thought it'd be cute if we see her helping Luke in particular, because Luke obviously had that situation with Clara where she pushed him and told him to go away, and she was having a meltdown in front of him. So if she's the one that helps Luke this season, that would be really cute, I think. Going back to Luke for a second, I think if Luke was showing signs of anxiety and depression, it would really show that it can happen to anyone, not just like the smallest, weakest girl at the studio. It could happen to the person that's wanted success for so long and thought that their life would be everything it's made out to be, and it seems really charismatic and lovable and friendly. It doesn't just happen to the weak people. So I think this would be really interesting, and it'd be really good to show on a show aimed at teenagers. I think it would also be cute if Clara volunteers to help Ava with mentoring the young Lost and Founders that have just joined, because like with Ava, it would show full circle that she's now mentoring people. She'd be helping people with their mental health as well. She can maybe even say to the new people, like, if you have a problem, come to me, like, and she could say everything that she's been through, and that could show growth in her as well, because it's recognizing where you've had like dark times and being able to talk about them. That shows a sign of strength. So I'd like to see Clara telling the people what she's been through and being like, yeah, I've come out better, I know how to deal with it now, I'm still struggling, but if you want help, I am here for you. 2 more characters that I considered to have a plot were Nate and Hannah, because they were in Lost and Found, but they didn't really have any relevance, I guess. And I figured that, to be honest, instead of keeping them there and not using them, I'd rather get rid of them as characters. So I figured that Hannah would just leave and probably do something else. It'd probably be said that she's focusing on school or something, and Nate would get a really good opportunity as a pianist somewhere. So he goes and does that, and he's not in the show anymore. He can maybe be in the few episodes and get an opportunity then, and we see him get the opportunity, but I wouldn't keep him on because I can't think of anything interesting to do with him. So yeah, and that would mean that season 3 can be the end of Lost and Found. Everyone would be content, and yeah, I'd want to watch season 3 of Lost and Found if I wrote it. It's a lot more mature than the next step is. It has deeper storylines. I feel like it definitely deserved better. Let me know down below if you have any more thoughts on what you'd like to happen in season 3 of Lost and Found. What do you think of my suggestions? You can add on to them, take stuff out, whatever. And I'll see you soon for a new video, guys. Bye!
That's right.